Hey there. Are you ready for a story that'll leave you questioning like everything you thought you knew about love and trust and the lengths a mother would go to for her child? Today we're delving into a case that shook the world. It's the story of Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard. So picture this. A seemingly frail young girl confined to a wheelchair battling a myriad of debilitating illnesses. And her devoted mother Dee Dee by her side, every step of the way, a beacon of strength and selflessness. They captivated hearts, garnering sympathy and support from their community and beyond. But behind this heartwarming facade, a dark and disturbing truth was lurking, a truth that would unravel the most shocking way imaginable. Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. Let's rewind to the beginning. What initially drew people to Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose's story?
I think their stories seem to embody resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. You had Dee Dee, a single mother tirelessly caring for her daughter, who, according to her, suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, and a host of other serious conditions. Gypsy Rose seemingly trapped in a fragile child's body, enduring countless medical procedures and relying on a wheelchair for mobility. It was a narrative that tugged at heartstrings, drawing sympathy and support from their community. They were given a home by Habitat for Humanity, whisked off to Disney World by charities, and showered with well wishes and donations.
It's hard to imagine that anyone could fake such a level of suffering, especially for their own child. What made people believe Dee Dee so readily?
Dee Dee was incredibly convincing. She was a master manipulator, adept at playing the role of the devoted, self-sacrificing mother. She had a knack for presenting just enough medical jargon and fabricated documentation to keep suspicions at bay. If a doctor dared to question a diagnosis, she'd quickly move on to another physician, ensuring that Gypsy Rose was subjected to a constant barrage of unnecessary tests and treatments. It was a meticulously crafted performance, and unfortunately, many were taken in by it.
Wow. It's chilling to think how easily she manipulated the system. But as we now know, the truth was far more sinister. When did the cracks in Dee Dee's facade begin to show?
The truth began to unravel slowly in whispers and inconsistencies that eventually grew too loud to ignore. Some medical professionals had fleeting moments of doubt over the years, but Dee Dee was always able to explain them away or simply find a new doctor who wouldn't question her. It was Gypsy Rose, growing older and more aware, who started to realize that something was terribly wrong.
It must have been incredibly confusing and frightening for her to start questioning her own reality. How did she begin to piece together that her mother was deceiving everyone?
Imagine growing up believing you're chronically ill, constantly poked and prodded your life, a seemingly endless cycle of doctor's appointments and treatments. Then as you get older, you start to notice that your symptoms don't quite align with what you're being told. You see other kids living normal lives, experiencing things that are denied to you. That's the seed of doubt that began to grow in Gypsy Rose's mind.
So she was living in this fabricated world, completely dependent on her mother for everything. What was the turning point for Gypsy Rose? When did she decide she couldn't take it anymore?
That turning point arrived as Gypsy Rose gained access to the outside world through the internet. She began connecting with people online, experiencing a taste of freedom and normalcy that had been denied to her. It was through one of these online connections that she met a man named Nicholas Godejohn. And in him, she saw a potential path to escape the suffocating control of her mother.
Okay, so we have this young woman desperate to break free from a life of manipulation and fabricated illness. This is where the story takes an even darker turn.
Right. Yes, the desire for freedom combined with the influence of Godejohn led Gypsy Rose down a dangerous path. They began plotting a way to escape Dee Dee's clutches once and for all. And tragically, that plan involved murder.
It's hard to even fathom what must have been going through Gypsy Rose's mind at that point. To feel so trapped, so desperate, that murder seemed like the only option. Can you walk us through what happened next?
In June 2015, Nicholas Godejohn traveled from Wisconsin to the Blanchard home in Missouri. While Gypsy Rose waited in another room, Godejohn carried out their chilling plans, stabbing Dee Dee multiple times while she slept.
It's a scene that sends chills down your spine. Just a stark reminder of the dark places desperation can lead. What happened after the murder?
Gypsy Rose and Godejohn fled to Wisconsin, leaving behind a gruesome scene and a community reeling in disbelief. But before they disappeared, they made a chilling post on Dee Dee's Facebook page announcing her death and hinting at the twisted truth that was about to be uncovered.
That Facebook post must have been the first clue that something wasn't right. What was the reaction like when Dee Dee's body was discovered and the truth began to surface?
It was a complete shock. The community that had rallied around Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose, showering them with support and sympathy, felt utterly betrayed. The carefully constructed facade crumbled, exposing a web of lies and manipulation that had spanned years.
I can only imagine the media frenzy that must have ensued. This wasn't just a local crime, it was a story that gripped the nation.
Hmm.
What were some of the key questions that emerged as the investigation unfolded?
The case quickly became a media sensation, raising a whirlwind of questions. How could this happen? How did Dee Dee manage to deceive so many people for so long? And most importantly, who was the real victim in this twisted tale?
It's fascinating how the narrative shifted so dramatically. Initially, the public saw Gypsy Rose as a cold-blooded killer. But as the extent of Dee Dee's abuse came to light, the perception changed. How did the legal system grapple with this complexity?
The legal proceedings were just as intricate as the case itself. Gypsy Rose, now seen as both a victim and a perpetrator, ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, a sentence that reflected the complexities of her situation.
10 years. It's a sentence that seems to straddle a line between acknowledging her culpability in the crime and recognizing the years of abuse she endured. What was the public reaction to the sentencing?
The public was, and to this day remains, sharply divided. Some believe the sentence was too lenient, arguing that taking a life regardless of the circumstances demands a harsher punishment. Others argue that 10 years is far too long considering the horrific abuse Gypsy Rose suffered and the fact that she didn't physically commit the murder.
It's a case that defies easy answers, a moral and legal quagmire that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about abuse, manipulation, and the very nature of justice. Did the trial reveal any further insights into Dee Dee's motivations?
During the trial, medical experts shed light on Dee Dee's condition. It's believed that she suffered from Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a mental health disorder where a caregiver fabricates or induces illness in a person under their care to gain attention and sympathy.
That's incredibly disturbing. So Dee Dee's actions weren't driven by love, but by a need to control and be seen as a martyr.
It's a difficult concept to grasp, but yes, her actions seem to have been driven by a deeply rooted psychological need rather than genuine care for her daughter. She thrived on the attention and sympathy she received as Gypsy Rose's caretaker.
This whole case is so heartbreaking. It raises so many questions about the signs of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. How do we even begin to unravel something as complex as this? What are some of the red flags that people should be aware of?
That's a crucial question because early intervention is key to protecting vulnerable individuals. One of the biggest red flags is a caregiver who seems overly eager for their dependent to receive medical attention, often exaggerating or even fabricating symptoms. They might dock or shop moving from one physician to another if anyone dares to question their narrative. The dependent might undergo an unusually high number of tests and procedures, often for conditions that are difficult to diagnose. And sadly, the caregiver might even tamper with medications or medical equipment to induce or worsen symptoms.
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
Someone deliberately harming another person for their own psychological gain. This case sparked a conversation about the line between victim and perpetrator. Where do we draw that line in a case like Gypsy Rose's, where she was both abused and complicit in a horrific crime?
Yeah, that's a question that continues to spark debate and soul-searching. It challenges our traditional understanding of justice and forces us to consider the profound and lasting impacts of abuse. Gypsy Rose's case highlights the need for a more nuanced approach, one that takes into account the complexities of trauma and the long-lasting effects of manipulation.
It seems like there are no easy answers in a case like this. What happened to Gypsy Rose since her sentencing, and has there been any further legal action?
Since her incarceration, Gypsy Rose has reportedly made significant strides in her personal development. She's said to be pursuing her education, engaging in therapy, and adjusting to a life free from her mother's manipulation. While she expressed remorse for her role in Dee Dee's death, she also maintains that she's in a better place now than she ever was under her mother's control.
It's almost paradoxical. Finding freedom within the confines of prison. This case has so many layers, and it's sparked numerous documentaries, TV shows, and countless discussions. What lasting impact do you think the Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard cases had on our understanding of abuse and the criminal justice system?
This case has undeniably raised awareness of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, prompting medical professionals, educators, and the public to be more vigilant about the signs of medical child abuse. It's also ignited a conversation about the complex interplay between trauma, culpability, and the very essence of justice. We're being forced to grapple with challenging questions about how we treat victims who commit crimes and how we can better support survivors of abuse who are navigating the long and arduous path to healing.
It's a case that continues to resonate, prompting self-reflection and a deeper understanding of the human psyche, both in its capacity for love and its potential for darkness. The story of Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard is a stark reminder that things aren't always as they appear, and that the truth can be far more disturbing than fiction.
It's a story that underscores the importance of critical thinking, of questioning what we're told, and of advocating for those who are unable to advocate for themselves. By shining a light on this dark corner of human behavior, we can hopefully work towards preventing such tragedies from happening in the future.
This case will stay with me for a long time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the twisted world of Gypsy Rose and Dee Dee Blanchard. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us.
And if you're as fascinated by true crime as we are, be sure to follow and subscribe to Crime Podcastle for more deep dives into the darkest corners of the human experience. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where you can find exclusive content, engage in discussions with fellow true crime enthusiasts, and even suggest future cases for us to explore. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.